Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to a special ARK video. Today we're going to be discussing all the big news over the last 12 hours or so, giving you as much info as we can, diving deep into the decisions about why ARK 2 will be a launch exclusive for Xbox and PC, but it doesn't mean it's not coming to PS4. And when we can expect to see this game, I've got loads of compelling evidence to give to you guys, as well as go over a bunch of stuff the developers have said and just talk in general about what to expect and what kind of game ARK 2 is going to be. Also, I do want to take a quick look at the ARK animated series. I love the look of this. It's got so many great actors in it, so definitely want to try taking a little gander at it, and we'll review who's actually starring in it. So all that, the future of ARK on current consoles and future, as well as some news about Genesis Chronicles 2 update hitting Xbox, PlayStation and PC later on today. It's all here, let's go, ARK News. So Aaron Greenberg tweeted out last night, "We're excited to be working with the Studio Wildcard team on bringing ARK 2 starring Vin Diesel exclusively to Xbox Series X and S consoles. This got the PlayStation fans really upset. Oh no, they're doing an exclusive deal. Microsoft, you bastards." Of course, this isn't the full story. Aaron Greenberg is the head of marketing for Xbox. The amount of times he's done this and said something's exclusive and it turns out actually it's just timed exclusive is unreal. His job is to hype and promote Microsoft and Xbox. They're gonna use terminology that really is kind of mixing up the truth just a little bit. We've seen this in games from years ago like Rise of the Tomb Raider. And of course PlayStation have got no qualms about buying up games to have them as exclusives. But this will not be an exclusive to just Microsoft and PC. It will be hitting the PlayStation, just not at launch. Why I'm so sure of this? Well, the people that actually will properly know, the people that are making the game, I think are more to be trusted than the hype man for Microsoft. Dolly put out a tweet last night. "Hey team, seen some messages about this, want to clarify. ARK 2 will be launching on PC and exclusively on Xbox." Then the words "no panic." Now obviously you would expect maybe it'd be easier if they just said yeah, it's coming to the PlayStation as well. But considering Microsoft have obviously give Wildcard a shed ton of money, they're not necessarily going to want them to promote that there is going to be it appearing on another console. This is marketing, this is the console wars crap. And I can't stand it. I hate exclusives, but it is the way it is. Dolly is the product manager for ARK and ARK 2. She's pretty much high up there, associate producer as well on the animated series. She's risen pretty high from just being a community manager on Atlas to being a really important part of the team. Said the community manager also obviously said the same thing. It'll be launching on PC and Xbox. So I don't want to see any bots in comments going, yeah, but is it coming out on PlayStation? It will be on the PlayStation, mark my words. And here's why. I've been keeping up with what's going on with Bethesda. I've done a few videos on it in the last 6 months talking about Microsoft's acquisition of it and what that meant for exclusives. At one point it really did seem like they were really pushing that you'd only be able to play like the Elder Scrolls 6 and future Bethesda titles on an Xbox. Phil Spencer has come out in interviews and said that they don't have to put games on other platforms if they don't want to. But this was quickly followed up by another executive saying that actually they may still come to PlayStation, but they're going to be exclusively timed for the Xbox and PC. In the long run, we don't just have intentions of pulling all of Bethesda content out of Sony or Nintendo or otherwise, Tim Stewart said. Now, Tim Stewart's really important at Microsoft too. Now I'm highlighting this because it's the same sort of thing, but even more in favour of ARK being on a PlayStation, because they're not actually owned by Microsoft. Microsoft haven't gone out and bought Wildcard. The deal they've done is simply to secure exclusive rights. They've supported Wildcard with a bunch of money. In return, lately, the Explorer edition of ARK went to the Games Pass. ARK's been on Games Pass a while, but they just added all of the DLC from the kind of first season. So Scorched Earth, Aberration and Extinction. That's like £34 worth of DLC if you're buying it brand new. Obviously as well, Microsoft were very keen for Wildcard to do a big update with the next gen stuff. That hit Xbox and it's yet to hit PlayStation, although Cedric, the actual community manager for ARK, has said that something is in the works at the same sort of thing for PlayStation 5 players. It could have been a bit clearer, and like I said, the marketing manager Aaron Greenberg could have maybe done a little bit less shenanigans. But I would go with what the actual Wildcard developers are telling you right now, rather than someone that's best interest is just to hype up Microsoft. The fact is, this shouldn't be that much news to you. Not if you've been following me anyway. I've been telling you guys for ages that Wildcard have plans to always use early access. It was only yesterday I highlighted this article, which I've shown a bunch of times over the years, from Doug Kennedy. He's the CEO. He pretty much owns Studio Wildcard. He was the guy that funded them to get them up and running when they first started making the game in 7 months back in 2015. We will absolutely 100% use early access for our next project, Kennedy said. I enjoy it because it allows us to onboard the hardest of our hardcore fans and stay in tune with them and to give them a voice inside a game that's been developed. They've used it for PixARK, they've used it for Atlas, so they of course will be using it for ARK 2 as well. And as we all know, PlayStation doesn't have a dedicated early access program. So in a way, it could be PlayStation's fault that there is going to be a significant delay between you guys on PlayStation getting to play it. There are more players on PlayStation playing ARK than there are on Xbox. Fact. Now some of these numbers are a bit dodgy, but this is a PlayStation trophy site that lists exactly how many trophies have been dished out to players. There's around 18 to 19 million players actually playing ARK across Xbox, PlayStation and PC. In the last count that I saw, news articles, Steam had around 8 million of them players, maybe a bit more, which meant you could split the player base of about 9 million between Xbox and PlayStation. Now, although ARK came out on the Xbox first, it was huge when it hit PlayStation. The devs said that they regrouped, or they had as many players playing it on PlayStation in the first 3 months as they did in the first 6 months of playing on Xbox. I'm really driving this home because I hate when people go just commenting a load of nonsense after I've literally showed you guys. There are more players playing ARK on a PlayStation. Or at least bought it anyway. That may change now since it's on Games Pass more and more, but the fact is that PlayStation still outsold the Xbox nearly 3-1. Again, something else to back this up, that the devs recently showed some stats about the turkey event over the last year and how many players were killed by turkeys, and PlayStation 4 had far many more than Xbox or even PC, so people are actually playing it on PlayStation more than any other platform. So yes, it's a shame this isn't happening, but it is a consequence, maybe partly down to PlayStation not having that dedicated program. Another thing though to consider is though that Wildcard were actually in still a bit of trouble when they released ARK on the Xbox and even their DLC Scorched Earth. Wildcard had to pay $40 million to a previous company that their lead creative guy, Jeremy Stieglitz, used to work for. He wasn't meant to start working on another company or a game, and they ended up suing him. Hence why they had to get investment from Snail Games, hence why Snail Games have such a big hold over Studio Wildcard. So paying out $40 million, even after the success they had, it was still way too much. So they ended up releasing Scorched Earth to help pay for it while in early access, the first time a developer had released DLC in an early access state. ARK has made a bunch of money over the years. It's been really successful, all the DLC etc, so they've got a bit of money in the bank at the moment. But they have had some failures. The VR didn't really take off as much. Atlas is a complete cluster truck still. And they spent money and development time trying out new projects like Survival of the Fittest and Primal Survival that didn't work out. Not to mention the costs in getting the game ported over onto the Switch. So ARK came out on the Xbox in early access game preview in December 2015, only around 5 or 6 months after the PC. And then it was pretty much a year later that it appeared on a PlayStation in December 2016. Yet ARK was not a finished game. Technically, PlayStation did for maybe the first time allow a non-completed game early access as a game on their platform. ARK would not leave early access until another 8 months. So technically, PlayStation allowed an unfinished game at full price on their platform. That's the big cutaway. They sold it with the Scorched Earth DLC, and that was the way they could get around it. The Studio Wildcard development team had to go to Japan and set up a big meeting with Sony to hash out the deal. And they needed that money still, even after the Scorched Earth stuff, to help support them and keep the game running. So it is a bit crap that kind of PlayStation fans are being left in the dust a bit. But it is a combination of that. PlayStation still not having a dedicated early access program, and the fact is that Microsoft want to get as many reasons to come and play on their platform as possible. To me this is super relevant because it does explain why Microsoft have managed to do some better deals with Wildcards than PlayStation. Also, the creative director of Wildcards, Jesse, used to work for Microsoft and was in charge of their Holo project for a while, so they've got big relationships there too. So, next gen graphics, next gen online multiplayer sandbox. There were some worries, especially from me as well, that this would be like a single player game. The way the trailer had it set up with Vin Diesel protecting the girl, it looked like it was a God of War ripoff. But of course, when you look into it a bit more, you see the tribesmen, the tribespeople around him. It's pretty obvious it will be a multiplayer sandbox after all. And thank God Wildcard actually clarified this last night. They have said next gen graphics, and as I said already and we've gone into it, I'm really expecting that ARK 2 will be launching just on the X and S and the PlayStation 5. I don't think it will be appearing on the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation Pro, and that's mainly because it's going to be around 18 months before we see ARK 2 come out. Remember, we've still got Genesis 2 DLC to come out this March. The rate that they've been doing stuff, which is every year to every 15 months, I'm fully expecting ARK 2 to come out in the summer of 2022. That will be 7 years after the original game and over a year since the last piece of DLC came out. That's a good timeline. By that time, I think a lot of people will be migrating to the next gen consoles, and that's definitely PlayStation's idea that they want you to make believe in generations. So, two things clarified. It is not just an Xbox exclusive, it's only a launch exclusive. So you can imagine if it stays in early access for another 6 months to a year, there could be the distinct possibility you won't be playing on ARK on a PlayStation until 2023. If you're thinking I'm chatting a load of shit, I've done so many videos over the years. I've delved and investigated every article, every interview with these developers. Time and time again I've been right about exactly when stuff is going to be coming out. Hopefully I've shown you enough to really believe in that. If it's wrong, if it's different, if it changes, if it comes out earlier, I'll be a happy man. But yeah, I think expectations need to be set. Don't expect ARK on a PlayStation until at least 2022 and possibly even 2023. Craig Brown is the lead designer at Studio Wildcard. He's the guy that's actually been making and really putting ARK through its paces in the last year or so. Someone asked him about the release date, is it going to be 2022 for the game and animated series or just the series? And he said, I can definitely say that the release date is not something I'll be allowed to talk about for quite a while. Again, obviously reading between the lines, don't expect this game to appear anytime soon. One feature I really like as well about the trailer, apart from obviously Vin Diesel, who I love, is it does look like they're returning to a more primitive state. There is going to be technology obviously with the interface and the cloning stuff that's going on, but they were having pretty much all wearing just regular clothes, regular armors, using spears, although that spear does look like it transforms when he throws it at the T-Rex monster. Dodex, the guy that makes the app so you can check how long it takes to waste your life taming a creature, says he really loves the idea of a more primitive style, and I stand this. 81% of the 1,200 people voting also agree. Zed has also pipped in and says he loves it as well. So again, I definitely think this is definitely going to lean into at least the first parts of it as being a more primitive approach. Hopefully this means Wildcard have realised that the tech and the future stuff is all just a bit too shiny and just a bit boring. Give me primitive survival with a little futuristic mix. People were complaining that the trailer wasn't actually indicative of gameplay, and that it's obviously just a cinematic. And kind of yes and no. So what happens is they will use a lot of the in-game engine assets. Now lots of games have done this in the past, and it basically still means that it's a CGI trailer, but it's made with the Unreal Engine. However, Kudikos, the guy that makes the trailers, that has probably had an input in this, has said that all of this was filmed in-game with game assets. So regardless if it's a game engine trailer or whether or not it's a proper trailer, what we can take away from that is that things like maybe the creature, the dinosaur monster, the NPC enemies, and the hairstyles and the models that are being used, they're indicative of what we can expect in the actual game. Obviously the environment as well is probably the major number one thing to really be there. The biomes and some of the dinosaurs we saw, like the Tropio/Pteranodon. Of course it isn't straight up gameplay. I'm not suggesting that one bit, and you've got to take everything I've said with a pinch of salt. But they've shown previously in other trailers that yes, although they toy around and they make the actors, make the models move in different ways that we don't actually get to try out in the game, it has more or less been that way in certain aspects in terms of like the biome and how the world looks. So the animated show, it looks pretty great, but it's not going to be coming out until 2022. But obviously, again, another bit of evidence that suggests ARK 2 won't be hitting till that point either, as it makes sense releasing both of them at the same time. Generate more hype, more interest in the brand and the game. It's got a huge list of actors. Gerard Butler from 300. Zan McClellan, don't know who he is. Malcolm McDowell, he's a pretty ancient old British actor from The Clockwork Orange. David Tennant, obviously we know he's Rockwell's voice in the upcoming Gen 2. And of course Doctor Who and a bad guy and a bunch of stuff. But he's obviously going to be in this as well. Devery Jacobs, no idea. Deborah Mailman, no idea. Madeline Madden, no idea. Elliot Page, Juliet Mills, kind of recognise the name but don't know him too much. Michelle Yeoh, one of the biggest action stars from Hong Kong and China movie making over the 20 years. You might have recently seen her in the Star Trek TV show. Raga Ragnars, Adam Tudek, I recognise him vaguely. Jeffrey Wright, Carl Urban, who is obviously in The Boys. And Ron Yuan, don't know who he is. Of course, we've got Russell Crowe as well and Vin Diesel. Man, I feel like such an ancient bastard that I've got to explain who some of these people are. It looks great, it looks fantastic. How are they doing this? Well, all these actors have been sitting on their ass doing not much over the last year. No movies, no real TV shows coming out. So you can bet a lot of them have been asked to do some voice work, and this will just be easy, quick money for them. Hopefully it will be on something like Netflix. But I kind of get the feeling that if this was the case, they would have announced it as coming to Netflix already. So we'll have to see near the time exactly what platform it's going to be on. But it looks great, I'm down for this. I said this to you guys in my video yesterday, I expected some sort of anime announcement, and I was pretty much spot on. It's going to be following the path of HLNA, otherwise known as Helena, and it looks like a lot of the survivors from the lore of ARK are all going to be there too. So the Genesis 2 Chronicles patch is scheduled to drop on all platforms Friday afternoon EST. So that's going to be around 9 PM, 10 PM tonight for UK, maybe even a little bit later. Considering there's been no announcements about Winter Wonderland, I am pretty certain we're not going to be having it this year. Or if we will, it'll be a very last minute thing and it'll be structured and scaled down quite a bit. I could be wrong, but that's just what I'm gaining since they've not really announced anything else. So there we go. ARK will be next gen. It will be a multiplayer sandbox game still. It won't be just exclusive to Xbox and PC. It will come to PlayStation eventually. Now what type of game will ARK really be though? Well, doesn't mention anywhere it's PvP. One thing to take away from the trailer is that the focus is on fighting these NPC enemies. Imagine if I showed you guys like interviews from ages ago where they said they wanted to rip out the framework of ARK. They want to do something different. Imagine if ARK ends up not being PvP. Imagine if it does end up being that you're just going to be fighting against these guys rather than other players. Taming does look like it's a thing, although it may be different this time around. From the trailer, grabbing the egg, it's in the satchel, it's very protected, and people seem to be really obviously holding it very closely as it's important. So maybe actually just knocking dinosaurs out with narcotics won't be the way anymore. You'll actually have to go and grab the eggs from their nests. That is a lot of hearsay, but for sure the 4 points I made before that are definitely concrete in my opinion. And that is it guys. I love going into super detail on this stuff, the history of ARK. I've been covering it 5 years now. This is why I feel like I know so much. But I'll be back with more info soon. Until next time, Ratbags, I'll catch you later.